You know, I've always been interested in hearing people make music or little beats with just their mouths. I found it very cool, and I still find it very cool when a person just imitates an instrument or the beat of a song and then actually sings the song at the same time. It leaves me speechless every time. Beatboxing is something I'll never let go in my life because it just keeps getting better and better over the years. But one thing beginner beatboxers or just people who are interested in beatboxing always ask is how? How can someone beatbox? How do people even do that? And this is something I've always wondered as well. How can someone make all those different sounds and turn it into a cool, interesting beat using only their mouth? I thought to myself, well, obviously it's just practice and practice of the sounds and beats and also beat routines. But I realized everybody has their own way of learning. Everybody has a different mindset of how to approach every single thing they do. They also have different features of the mouth and nose to even how much they are able to breathe in and out, which all plays a big factor when someone is beatboxing. This is when I ask myself, how can someone actually learn how to beatbox? So that's when I searched up my research question. I came across an organization called Human Beatbox. They have articles written by many professional beatboxers going over their experiences to articles going over how to actually beatbox. The Human Beatbox organization has been a huge resource for many beatboxers since 2001, and their main goal is to get people to be a part of the beatboxing community. They even have video tutorials going over the process of the sounds and beats to even the history of beatboxing. They believe that beatboxing has some foundations to it. The first one is to learning the actual sound. It's different for everyone because some will take longer than others. They also think you should learn with the basics first. So, the first one you can learn is the classic kick drum, which sounds like, and the classic hi-hat, which sounds like, and finally the classic snare drum, which sounds like. They also suggest that you have flow when beatboxing, and flow is basically when you have all your beats perfectly timed. So one way to do that is basically use the hi-hat as a metronome. So it could sound something like. So you see how all the hi-hats were just perfectly timed while you added more beats to it. That's when you know you have flow. After you have flow, you basically gotta regulate your breath intake. You don't want to run out of breath in the middle of a beat. Then once you have all that down, they suggest that you memorize beat patterns and beat routines by writing them down or just recording yourself. The next place I went to was an organization called Swiss Beatbox. Like Human Beatbox, Swiss Beatbox is an organization dedicated to beatboxing. Their main goal is to get people to believe that beatboxing is an actual genre of music. Currently, they have the YouTube channel that is just dedicated for beatboxing, and it's the largest one too. They host many events just for beatboxing and post them on their YouTube channel. They also have many tutorials going over so many different sounds and beats by professional beatboxers. Lastly, me being interested, I went to an actual beatboxer instead of an organization that had tutorials going over beats and sounds. Terry M., a professional beatboxer that's been beatboxing since 2007, also has a YouTube channel. On his YouTube channel, he posts beatboxing tutorials and explains his own style of performing them. His tutorials go in depth from teaching viewers basic beats like the K snare, which basically sounds like an inward K, so to intermediate sounds like the throat bass, and to even the record scratch, which sounds like wow, which also goes in depth by discussing the different styles on how to learn the beats. So the main ideas of these sources were to teach people to learn how to beatbox, but I noticed something. I noticed that when performing to beatbox in front of people, it requires a mic, speakers, and in some cases, a loop station. I thought to myself, how can someone who can't afford the right materials learn to beatbox? And in that moment, that question was the spark that shifted my whole research. I had to know the answer. It mattered because what if there were others in the exact same situation I was? Well, I'd want them to know them too, right? That's when I started my own research. I started with Errol Granum, who had been beatboxing in high school for about 3 years. Basically, when I was asking Errol these questions, he gave me alternatives to what I was asking. So he said, instead of a mic, people who couldn't afford one could use their phones, or even a toy microphone that would cost $1. Also, some of the ways he said people could raise money was that you could create a club to help fundraise, post a video on social media and ask for sponsors, or even start a GoFundMe page. But the most important part of this interview wasn't the beginning or the middle, it was the last question I asked him. I asked him if he thought that he answered my research question. He answered me with a no, because he said that my questions were not going in the right direction to my answer. He said that if I would have changed or tweaked my answers a little bit, then I probably would have hit the answer I would have wanted. So yes, in the end, this research question was only partially answered, and yes, I know that there are so many other ways to learn how to beatbox when you can't afford the proper materials. This is why I believe that this is only the beginning of my research. I want other beginner beatboxers, or anyone in general who is interested in beatboxing, to continue my research by tweaking the questions I asked Earl. You should try to tweak them by going more on the learning process side. I also want others to ask more people who are still beatboxers so they can get their view on the problem. I want every perspective of the problem so that way we could learn the full answer to my question.